He came back home expecting everything to be just like before. But a new presence in the kitchen would test his authority and his patience. What started as a power struggle quickly turned into something unexpectedly intense. In the end, only one would walk away victorious from this battle of wills. Before diving into this intriguing story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more thrilling tales. After a year traveling around the world, the spoiled heir returned to the mansion, expecting to find the luxury and comfort he was accustomed to. Exhausted from his flight, his greatest desire was to rest on the Egyptian cotton sheets of his bed. However, before that, he needed to satisfy his hunger and headed to the kitchen, a place he rarely visited before his departure. Upon entering, he was surprised to see an unknown woman cutting vegetables with surgical precision, so focused that she didn't even notice his presence. Her black hair was tied up messily, revealing a slender neck, and her hands worked with the confidence of an expert. The heir cleared his throat, leaning against the doorframe with a smile that had already won hearts on 3 continents. "Hello, I'm Ethan Collins, owner of this mansion, and you would be—" His voice carried a poorly disguised arrogance, as if he expected to be immediately recognized and revered. The woman only gave him a quick glance before returning to her work. "Good evening, Mr. Collins. I'm Rebecca, the new house chef." Irritated by her lack of submission, Ethan frowned. "Great, I'm starving. Prepare me a breakfast fit for a king now." However, instead of rushing to serve him, Rebecca looked him in the eye and responded coldly. "If you want to eat like a king, you should learn to cook like one. My shift is already over, and dinner will be served in 2 hours." Ethan was dumbfounded by her audacity. He was about to demand her dismissal when his mother, Elizabeth Collins, entered the kitchen. "Ethan, darling, good to see you've arrived. I see you've already met Rebecca, our new personal chef." "Mother, this employee is refusing to serve me," protested Ethan, pointing at Rebecca. Elizabeth smiled serenely. "Son, Rebecca isn't your personal employee. She has specific hours and responsibilities. If you're hungry outside of mealtimes, you'll have to manage on your own." Ethan's frustration mixed with disbelief. Since when did his mother defend the staff? And why did this chef act like she owned the place? While trying to process the situation, his eyes couldn't help but follow Rebecca's graceful movements around the kitchen. "But Mother, I just got back from traveling. I'm exhausted and starving," argued Ethan, hoping his mother would give in, as she always did. Elizabeth, however, remained firm. "Darling, there's fruit in the refrigerator and bread in the pantry. I'm sure you can make yourself a sandwich. Dinner will be served at the usual time." With that, Elizabeth left the kitchen, leaving Ethan astonished. He looked at Rebecca, who continued her work as if he weren't even there. Something about her both intrigued and irritated him at the same time. Never before had someone treated him with such indifference in his own home. Reluctantly, Ethan opened the refrigerator and grabbed some fruit. While biting into an apple, he couldn't take his eyes off Rebecca. There was something about the way she moved, the concentration on her face that fascinated him. "So, Rebecca, how long have you been working here?" he asked, trying to start a conversation. 2 weeks, Mr. Collins," she replied without taking her eyes off her task. "And you already feel comfortable enough to deny me food?" he provoked with an ironic smile. Rebecca finally stopped what she was doing and faced him. "Mr. Collins, my job is to prepare healthy and delicious meals for the entire family at established times. I'm not a 24-hour snack machine." Her frankness caught him by surprise. Ethan was used to people who did everything to please him, not someone who confronted him directly. "Do you know who I am?" he asked, his voice mixing indignation and curiosity. "I know that you're the son of my employers and heir to a large business empire," Rebecca replied, returning to her task. "But in my kitchen that doesn't mean much. Here what matters is respect for the food and for those who prepare it." Ethan felt disarmed. Rebecca's attitude was disconcerting and at the same time refreshing. For the first time in a long time, he found himself genuinely intrigued by someone. "All right, you win," he said, raising his hands in surrender. "But tell me, what are you preparing for dinner that's so important it can't be interrupted?" A slight smile appeared on Rebecca's lips. "Curious, Mr. Collins. Perhaps if you have patience, you'll find out at dinner." Ethan found himself smiling back, despite his earlier irritation. "Maybe I'll stick around to find out," he responded, leaving the kitchen with one last look at Rebecca. As he climbed the stairs to his room, Ethan couldn't get Rebecca out of his head. She was an enigma, a challenge he hadn't expected to find in his own home. Something told him that his life was about to change in ways he could never have predicted. In the kitchen, Rebecca continued her work, but a small smile played on her lips. The return of young Collins promised to bring an interesting dynamic to the mansion, and she wondered how this would affect her stay there. Little did she know that the events of the coming weeks would challenge everything they both thought they knew about themselves and each other. As night fell over New York City, the Collins mansion prepared for a dinner that would mark the beginning of an unexpected journey for its heir and the mysterious chef. The aroma of dishes prepared by Rebecca began to fill the air, promising not only a feast for the palate, but also the beginning of a story that neither of them could predict. In the days following Ethan's return, the Collins mansion was the scene of growing tension between the heir and the new chef. Each meal transformed into a silent battlefield, with Ethan trying and failing to draw some warmer reaction from Rebecca. A week after his arrival during breakfast, Ethan decided to change tactics. He entered the kitchen wearing his favorite shirt, a piece of Italian silk that accentuated his green eyes. With a charming smile, he approached Rebecca, who was preparing an omelette. "Good morning, Rebecca. You know, I've been thinking, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. How about we start over?" Rebecca raised her eyes from her work, her gaze quickly scanning Ethan before returning to the frying pan. "Good morning, Mr. Collins. I'm glad you want to improve our professional relationship. How can I help you today?" Ethan, a bit disconcerted by her lack of reaction to his carefully planned appearance, cleared his throat. "Well, I thought we could talk a little, get to know each other better. I'm working right now, Mr. Collins. If you want to talk, I suggest you wait until my break." Frustrated, Ethan decided to change his approach. "All right, then, how about a culinary challenge? I've heard you're talented, but I'd like to see for myself." This finally captured Rebecca's attention. She turned off the stove and turned to face him. "A challenge? What kind of challenge?" Ethan smiled, feeling he had finally found a crack. "A duel in the kitchen, you and me. If I win, you'll have to obey me for a week. If you win, well, what do you want?" Rebecca studied him for a moment, a spark of interest in her eyes. "If I win, you wash the dishes every night for a week, and no asking for help from the other staff." "Deal." Ethan extended his hand, which Rebecca shook after a moment of hesitation. The next morning, the kitchen was prepared for the duel. Elizabeth, intrigued by her son's sudden culinary passion, agreed to be the judge. The challenge: prepare the best main dish in 2 hours, using only the ingredients available in the kitchen. When the timer started, Rebecca moved with grace and efficiency, selecting ingredients and preparing her workstation. Ethan, on the other hand, stood still, looking lost at the pots and utensils. 20 minutes passed, and while Rebecca already had a sauce bubbling and vegetables being cut, Ethan had barely chosen what to cook. His face grew increasingly red, with frustration and embarrassment. Rebecca, noticing his despair, approached hesitantly. "Mr. Collins, do you need help?" Ethan stared at her, ready to refuse, but something in her look made him stop. There was no mockery there, just a genuine offer of assistance. Swallowing his pride, he nodded. "I have never cooked before," he admitted softly. To his surprise, Rebecca smiled, not a smile of scorn, but a gentle and understanding one. "That's okay. Everyone starts somewhere. Come on, I'll teach you the basics." In the 2 hours that followed, the kitchen transformed. What began as a competition became an improvised lesson. Rebecca guided Ethan's hands with patience, teaching him how to cut, season, and cook. Ethan found himself fascinated not only by the cooking process, but by the evident passion in Rebecca's eyes as she explained each step. Her gentle touch when adjusting the position of the knife in his hands sent shivers down his spine. When time was up, Ethan presented a simple but surprisingly well-executed dish of grilled chicken with vegetables. Rebecca, in turn, created a masterpiece of wild mushroom risotto. Elizabeth, after tasting both dishes, declared Rebecca the winner, but praised Ethan's remarkable effort. To everyone's surprise, especially his own, Ethan wasn't upset by the defeat. On the contrary, he felt strangely fulfilled. "Congratulations, Rebecca," he said, extending his hand. "You deserved the victory." Rebecca shook his hand, her eyes shining. "Thank you, Mr. Collins. You did very well for a beginner." In that moment, something changed between them. The air in the kitchen seemed charged with a new energy, a mixture of mutual respect and something more, something that neither of them was ready to name. "So," Ethan smiled, a genuine smile this time, not the rehearsed one he normally used. "I guess I have a week of dishes ahead of me, don't I?" Rebecca laughed, a melodious sound that caught Ethan by surprise. "Yes, you do, and don't think I'll go easy on you just because you're the boss." As Ethan prepared for his first night of work in the kitchen, he realized that, for the first time in a long time, he was looking forward to what the future held. Defeat in the culinary challenge didn't seem like an end, but a beginning. The beginning of something that promised to change his life in ways he couldn't yet imagine. In the week following the culinary challenge, the routine at the Collins mansion underwent a drastic change. Every night after dinner, Ethan showed up punctually in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up and a determined expression on his face. Rebecca watched him with a mixture of amusement and curiosity as he faced piles of dishes, pans, and cutlery. At tea. First, Ethan was clumsy, almost breaking some expensive plates and making a considerable mess with water and soap. But, to Rebecca's surprise, he didn't complain. On the contrary, he approached the task with a dedication she never imagined seeing in the spoiled heir. On the third night, as Ethan scrubbed a particularly difficult pan, Rebecca decided to break the silence. "You know, Mr. Collins, I'm impressed. I thought you'd give up on the second day." Ethan looked up, droplets of sweat glistening on his forehead. "I always keep my promises, Rebecca. Besides," he hesitated for a moment, "it's not as bad as I imagined." Rebecca approached, picking up a dish towel. "Here, let me show you a trick to clean that pan more easily." In the minutes that followed, Rebecca guided Ethan, showing him efficient techniques for cleaning different utensils. Their fingers touched, several times sending small sparks of electricity between them. "Thank you," Ethan murmured, his voice softer than usual. "You're a good teacher." Rebecca smiled, a light blush tinting her cheeks. "Thank you, you're a surprisingly dedicated student." From that night on, their interactions subtly changed. Initial hostility gave way to cautious camaraderie. Ethan began asking questions about cooking, and Rebecca, recognizing his genuine interest, shared her knowledge enthusiastically. One night, while they dried the last dishes, Ethan asked, "Rebecca, how did you become a chef? Was it always your dream?" Rebecca paused, considering the question. "Actually, no, I wanted to be a ballerina when I was a child." Ethan looked at her with surprise. "Really? What changed?" "Life," Rebecca answered with a melancholic smile. "My family couldn't afford ballet lessons, but my grandmother was an incredible cook. I spent hours in the kitchen with her, learning her secrets. I realized that cooking was an art form as beautiful as dance." Ethan observed her, seeing her in a new light. "That's really inspiring, Rebecca. You turned a disappointment into a passion. And you, Mr. Collins, did you always want to follow in your father's footsteps in business?" It was Ethan's turn to hesitate. "To be honest, I never thought much about it. It was always assumed I'd take over the company one day. I never considered other options." Rebecca studied him for a moment. "It's never too late to explore new passions, you know?" Her words hung in the air, laden with meaning. Ethan felt something shift inside him, as if a door he didn't even know existed had been opened. In the following days, Ethan began appearing in the kitchen not just to wash dishes, but also to watch Rebecca cook. He watched her, fascinated, as she transformed simple ingredients into elaborate dishes, her concentration and creativity evident in every movement. One afternoon, as Rebecca prepared a risotto, Ethan gathered courage to ask, Could you teach me to cook, I mean? Rebecca looked at him, surprised. You want to learn to cook? Yes, Ethan replied, his voice firm. I want to understand what you see in this art. Rebecca smiled, a smile that lit up the entire kitchen. Of course, Mr. Collins, it would be my pleasure. And so their cooking lessons began. Ethan was an eager student, absorbing every tip and technique that Rebecca shared. He made mistakes, of course, burned sauces, cut himself with knives, and once nearly set the kitchen on fire trying to flambe a dish. But with each mistake he learned, and Rebecca was always there, patient and encouraging. As weeks passed, something more grew between them, something beyond mutual respect and friendship. There were moments when their eyes met and lingered a little longer than necessary, occasions when their bodies brushed accidentally in the tight kitchen, sending shivers down their spines. Ethan found himself thinking about Rebecca constantly, longing for the moments they spent together in the kitchen. He noticed small details, the way she tied her hair when concentrating, the sparkle in her eyes when she talked about a new dish she wanted to try, the melodious sound of her laughter when he made a particularly bad joke. Rebecca, in turn, saw Ethan with new eyes. The arrogant playboy she had met on the first day had given way to a dedicated and curious man, eager to learn and grow. She caught herself admiring the line of his jaw when he concentrated on cutting vegetables, or the way his green eyes shone when he managed to execute a dish correctly. One night, as they savored a dinner they had prepared together, Ethan realized he was feeling something he had never experienced before. It wasn't just physical attraction, or the desire to conquer that he usually felt. It was something deeper, more frightening and more exciting. Looking at Rebecca across the table, laughing at something he had said, Ethan had a shocking epiphany. He was falling in love with the family chef. The realization hit him like lightning, leaving him momentarily breathless. What would he do now? How would this affect his life, his family, his future? And more importantly, did Rebecca feel the same? As these questions spun in his mind, Ethan knew one thing for certain. His life would never be the same. The aroma of spices and the warmth of the kitchen had become more than just a pastime. They had become the setting for a transformation he never could have predicted. Weeks turned into months, and the dynamic between Ethan and Rebecca continued to evolve. The kitchen became a sanctuary for both, a place where they could be themselves, free from the expectations and pressures of the outside world. Ethan was unrecognizable. The young man who once only cared about parties and spending money now spent hours studying cookbooks and experimenting with new recipes. His family and friends noticed the change, but few understood the true reason behind it. One sunny afternoon, as they prepared an elaborate dinner for the Collins family, Ethan decided it was time to confront his feelings. "Rebecca," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "I need to tell you something." She looked at him, a hint of curiosity in her dark eyes. "What is it, Mr. Collins?" Ethan took a deep breath. "First, please call me Ethan. And second," he hesitated, gathering courage, "I think I'm in love with you." The silence that followed was deafening. Rebecca stood motionless, the wooden spoon frozen in the air. Her eyes widened, a mixture of emotions passing through them, surprise, confusion, and something else that Ethan couldn't decipher. "Ethan," she finally spoke, her voice low and controlled, "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything right now," Ethan quickly replied. "I just needed you to know." The moment was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. Elizabeth Collins entered the kitchen, her astute eyes immediately catching the tension in the air. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, her gaze alternating between her son and the chef. "Yes, Mother," Ethan replied, forcing a smile. "We were just discussing the menu for tonight." Elizabeth didn't seem convinced, but decided not to push. "Well, I have exciting news. James Rodriguez, the renowned Spanish chef, is coming to New York next week, and he has agreed to dine with us." Rebecca gasped, her eyes shining with excitement. "James Rodriguez? He's a legend in modern gastronomy." Ethan felt a pang of jealousy at seeing Rebecca's enthusiasm. "That's great, Mother," he said, trying to sound excited. Yes, and there's more, Elizabeth continued, her gaze fixed on Rebecca. He's looking for a sous chef for his new restaurant in San Francisco. I thought you might be interested, Rebecca. Ethan's world seemed to stop. He looked at Rebecca, his heart tightening as he saw the expression of pure joy on her face. It would be an incredible honor, Rebecca replied, her voice trembling with emotion. Elizabeth smiled, pleased. Great. I'm sure you'll impress him with your skills. After Elizabeth left, a heavy silence fell over the kitchen. Ethan and Rebecca stared at each other, both aware that everything had changed. Ethan, Rebecca began, but he interrupted. Erstiag, you don't need to say anything, he said, his voice colder than intended. It's an incredible opportunity for you. But what about us? What just happened here? Ethan felt a wave of bitterness overtaking him. What happened? Nothing happened, Rebecca. You have your career, I have mine. It was foolish of me to think it could be different. He turned to leave the kitchen, ignoring Rebecca's call. His heart was broken, but more than that, he was furious with himself for allowing himself to be vulnerable. In the days that followed, Ethan avoided the kitchen and Rebecca as much as possible. He took refuge in his room, drowning his sorrows in expensive whiskey and self-pity. On the night of the dinner with James Rodriguez, Ethan was forced to attend. He watched with a mixture of reluctant pride and burning jealousy as Rebecca presented dish after dish of stunning creations. James was clearly impressed. Miss Rebecca, he said at the end, of the meal, your talent is extraordinary. I would like to formally offer you the position of sous chef at my new restaurant in San Francisco. Ethan's heart sank as he waited for Rebecca's enthusiastic response, but to his surprise, she hesitated. Mr. Rodriguez, it's an incredible honor, Rebecca began, her eyes briefly meeting Ethan's. But I need some time to consider. There are complications I need to resolve first. James nodded understandingly. Of course. Take the time. You need. My offer stands. After the guests left, Ethan found Rebecca in the kitchen cleaning up the last traces of the dinner. Why didn't you accept immediately? He asked, his voice a mixture of confusion and hope. Rebecca turned to face him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Because, Ethan Collins, I think I'm in love with you too. The world seemed to stop for a moment. Ethan felt his heart race, a mixture of joy and fear overtaking him. But, Rebecca continued, her voice shaky, I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if I can give up my dreams, my career. Ethan stepped forward, taking her hands in his. What if you didn't have to choose? What if we could find a way to make this work? Rebecca looked at him, a small smile forming on her lips. How? I don't know yet, Ethan admitted, but I promise we'll figure it out together, if you're willing to try. In that moment, in the kitchen, that had become the heart of their unlikely love story, Ethan and Rebecca sealed their promise with a kiss. It was the beginning of something new, something scary and exciting. As they embraced, both knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be obstacles, doubts, and challenges. But there would also be love, growth, and, of course, lots of delicious food. The aroma of spices hung in the air, a constant reminder of how it all began and a promise of what was to come. Ethan Collins, the transformed heir, and Rebecca, the chef who won his heart, were ready to write the next chapter of their story together. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions for Ethan and Rebecca. The new couple navigated not only the challenges of their budding relationship, but also the expectations and pressures of the world around them. Ethan, determined to prove that his love for Rebecca was more than a passing whim, dove headfirst into the world of gastronomy. He enrolled in an intensive culinary course, spending his mornings learning advanced techniques and his afternoons practicing alongside Rebecca in the mansion's kitchen. Rebecca, in turn, struggled with the decision about James Rodriguez's offer. The opportunity in San Francisco was the kind of chance she had always dreamed of, but the idea of leaving Ethan behind was tearing her apart. One night, as they experimented with a new truffle risotto recipe, Ethan noticed Rebecca's distant expression. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly, putting the spoon aside. Rebecca sighed, meeting his eyes. "I'm thinking about us, about San Francisco, about everything. Ethan, what if we're making a mistake? What if this doesn't work out?" Ethan took her hands stained with ingredients and kissed them gently. "Rebecca, I can't promise it will be easy, but I can promise that I'll do everything in my power to make it work." "But your life is here," Rebecca argued. "Your family, the company—" Ethan interrupted her with a determined smile. "My life is wherever you are. Besides," he added with a mischievous gleam in his eyes, "I think it's about time the Collins heir expanded the business to the West Coast, don't you?" "Think?" Rebecca laughed, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. "You would really do that for me?" "For us," Ethan corrected, pulling her in for a kiss that tasted of truffles and possibilities. However, not everyone was as enthusiastic about the couple's new plans. When Ethan announced his intention to move to San Francisco with Rebecca, his family's reaction was mixed, to say the least. Elizabeth Collins, always the diplomat, tried to maintain a facade of support. "If that's what you really want, son, we'll support you. But are you sure you're ready to take on that responsibility?" Ethan's father, Richard Collins, was less understanding. "This is madness, Ethan. You're going to throw away years of preparation to take over the company because of a culinary whim." Ethan faced his father with a determination that surprised everyone. "It's not a whim, Dad. It's my life, my passion. And for the first time, I'm doing something that really matters to me." The weeks that followed were tense in the Collins mansion. Ethan divided his time between preparations for the move, negotiations with the company's board about opening a branch in San Francisco, and long nights in the kitchen with Rebecca, perfecting his skills. Finally, the big day arrived. Ethan and Rebecca were at the airport, ready to embark on their new adventure. Collins' family was there to say goodbye, including a visibly disgruntled Richard. At the last moment, when the couple was already heading to the boarding gate, Richard called his son aside. "Ethan," he began, his voice hoarse with contained emotion, "I still think you're making a mistake. But—" he hesitated, then continued, "I'm proud of your courage. Not many would have the audacity to follow their heart like this." Ethan, moved, hugged his father. "Thank you, Dad. I promise I won't disappoint you." As the plane took off, carrying Ethan and Rebecca to their new life in San Francisco, both knew that the road ahead would be challenging. But with their hands intertwined and hearts full of hope, they were ready to face any obstacle. In San Francisco, the couple threw themselves headfirst into their new lives. Rebecca assumed her role as sous chef at James Rodriguez's restaurant, impressing everyone with her creativity and dedication. Ethan, meanwhile, divided his time between overseeing the new branch of Collins Enterprises and improving his culinary skills at a local gastronomy school. The nights were reserved for them. In their small apartment with a view of the Pacific, Ethan and Rebecca experimented with new recipes, mixing American flavors with Californian cuisine. Their laughter echoed through the kitchen as they discussed ingredients, exchanged kisses between dishes, and dreamed about the future. But it wasn't all roses. The stress of Rebecca's new job, combined with the pressures Ethan faced from the family business, sometimes caused tensions. There were nights of heated discussions, followed by passionate reconciliations over homemade paella. One night, after a particularly difficult day, Ethan arrived home to find Rebecca crying in the kitchen. "What's wrong, love?" he asked, concerned. Rebecca wiped away the tears, trying to smile. "It's just, sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice, if I'm not holding you back, preventing you from being who you should be." Ethan hugged her tightly, the familiar smell of garlic and olive oil in her hair calming him. "Rebecca, you're not holding me back. You're helping me be the best version of myself. Together we're growing, learning, becoming better people." That night, as they shared a simple but delicious Spanish tortilla, Ethan and Rebecca reaffirmed their commitment to each other and to the life they were building together. Months passed, and gradually the couple found their rhythm. Ethan surprised everyone, including himself, with his talent for international business. The San Francisco branch was thriving under his innovative leadership. Rebecca, in turn, was excelling at the restaurant. Her creations, which mixed classical techniques with American touches, were catching the attention of San Francisco's gastronomic critics. On a starry night, as they walked hand in hand through Union Square after a long workday, Ethan suddenly stopped. "Rebecca," he said, his eyes shining with emotion, "thank you." She looked at him, confused. "For what?" "For teaching me to cook. For teaching me to love. For teaching me to truly live." Rebecca smiled, tears of happiness glistening in her eyes. "And thank you for giving me the courage to follow my dreams, for showing me that I can have it all, love and career." As they kissed under the city lights, Ethan and Rebecca knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. Their love story, born in the kitchen of the Collins mansion, would continue to develop, seasoned with new flavors, experiences, and challenges. And so the heir and the chef continued their journey, proving that with love, determination, and perhaps a little good food, any dream is possible. The first year in San Francisco passed like a whirlwind of emotions and experiences for Ethan and Rebecca. While their careers flourished, their relationship faced the typical ups and downs of a young couple living together for the first time. Ethan had adapted surprisingly well to international corporate life. His fresh and innovative approach was bringing impressive results for the Spanish branch of Collins Enterprises. However, success came with a price: long hours at the office and frequent trips across Europe. Rebecca, meanwhile, was quickly becoming a rising star in San Francisco's gastronomic scene. Her bold fusions of American and Mediterranean cuisine were attracting the attention of critics and gourmets throughout California. James Rodriguez, impressed with her talent and dedication, was giving her more and more responsibilities in the Chiwi, a restaurant. On a particularly hot summer night, Ethan arrived home late, exhausted after a week of negotiations in London. He found Rebecca on the balcony, looking thoughtfully at the city lights. "Hi, love," he said, kissing her softly. "Sorry I'm late. The flight was delayed and—" "It's okay," Rebecca interrupted him, her voice strangely distant. "I'm used to it." Ethan felt a pang of guilt. "Hey, what's wrong? Did something happen?" Rebecca sighed deeply before turning to face him. "Ethan, we need to talk. I feel like we're drifting apart. You're always traveling. I'm always at the restaurant. When was the last time we really spent time together?" Her words hit Ethan like a punch to the stomach. He knew they had been busy, but he hadn't realized how much it was affecting their relationship. "You're right," he admitted, pulling her close. "We've been so dedicated to our careers that we've forgotten why we came here in the first place." Rebecca relaxed in his arms, allowing herself to be vulnerable. "I love you, Ethan, but sometimes I wonder if that's enough." Ethan felt his heart tighten. "It is enough," he insisted. "We just need to try harder. What do you think about taking some time just for us? We could take that coastal trip we've always talked about." Rebecca's face lit up with a hesitant smile. "Really? You could take time off work? For you?" "Anything," Ethan promised, sealing the commitment with a passionate kiss. In the following weeks, Ethan and Rebecca dedicated themselves to reconnecting. They spent a magical weekend exploring the beaches of the California coast, cooking together in a rented beach house, and remembering why they fell in love in the first place. Back in San Francisco, they established new routines. Every Wednesday night, no matter how busy they were, they cooked together. These nights became sacred, a time to share not just meals, but also dreams, fears, and hopes. It was during one of these Wednesday nights that Rebecca dropped a bombshell. "Ethan," she began, nervously playing with her napkin ring, "James offered me an incredible opportunity." Ethan looked at her, expectant. "What kind of opportunity?" "He wants me to lead the opening of a new restaurant in Tokyo." The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan felt his world spin. Tokyo? On the other side of the world? For how long? he finally managed to ask. "A year minimum," Rebecca answered, her eyes searching his. "It's the chance of a lifetime, Ethan, but I don't know if I can accept." Ethan closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. Part of him wanted to scream, beg her to stay. But another part, the part that had grown and matured over the last few years, knew what he needed to do. "You have to go," he said softly. Rebecca looked at him, surprised. "What?" "You have to go," Ethan repeated, taking her hands. "It's your dream, Rebecca. I can't ask you to give that up for me." Tears began to form in Rebecca's eyes. "But what about us? I don't want to lose you, Ethan." Ethan smiled, though his heart was breaking. "Who said you're going to lose me? We have phones, video calls, and I'm sure I can arrange some business trips to Japan." Rebecca laughed through tears. "You'd do that for me." "For us," Ethan corrected, pulling her into a tight hug. "It won't be easy, but we'll make it work. I promise." In the months that followed, Ethan and Rebecca prepared for their temporary separation. They took advantage of every moment together, exploring San Francisco as if it were the first time, cooking elaborate dishes and making love as if each time were the last. Finally, the day of Rebecca's departure arrived. At the airport, they embraced for a long time, neither wanting to be the first to let go. "I love you," Rebecca whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I love you more," Ethan replied, kissing her softly. "Go show Tokyo what you're capable." As he watched Rebecca's plane take off, Ethan felt a mixture of sadness and pride. He knew the coming months would be difficult, but he also knew their love was strong enough to overcome the distance. Back in their now empty apartment, Ethan looked at the kitchen where so many memories had been made. With a determined smile, he grabbed an apron. Rebecca might be on the other side of the world, but he would continue practicing, perfecting his culinary skills to surprise her when she returned. After all, he thought, as he began to prepare a risotto, love, like good food, sometimes needs time and patience to be perfect. The months following Rebecca's departure were a test of endurance for Ethan and Rebecca's relationship. The distance between San Francisco and Tokyo seemed insurmountable some days, but both were determined to make it work. Ethan immersed himself completely in work, further expanding Collins Enterprises' business in the United States. His nights, once filled with laughter and culinary experimentation alongside Rebecca, were now dedicated to long video calls, where they shared the details of their days and dreamed about the future. Rebecca, for her part, was dazzled by the challenges and opportunities that Tokyo offered. Japanese cuisine, with its precision and respect for ingredients, opened new horizons for her creativity. However, amid the excitement of her new life, she missed Ethan's comforting presence. On a particularly difficult night, after a stressful day at the restaurant, Rebecca called Ethan, tears in her eyes. "Ethan, I don't know if I can do this," she confessed, her voice trembling. "Everything is so different. Here, sometimes I feel like I'll never fit in." Ethan felt his heart tighten as he saw the despair in Rebecca's eyes, even through the computer screen. "Hey, look at me," he said gently. "You're amazing, Rebecca. You've overcome so many obstacles to get where you are. Remember the first time we tried to make sushi at home?" Rebecca laughed through her tears, remembering the mess they had made in the kitchen. "How could I forget? We spent hours cleaning rice off the ceiling." "Exactly," Ethan smiled. "But you didn't give up. You practiced and practiced until you got it. And now look at you, working in one of the best restaurants in Tokyo. You'll overcome this too, love. I believe in you." Ethan's words calmed Rebecca, reigniting her determination. She realized that even thousands of miles away, Ethan was still her safe harbor. Inspired by this conversation, Ethan decided to surprise Rebecca. He secretly enrolled in an intensive Japanese cooking course in San Francisco. In the following weeks, he spent his free nights learning to prepare sushi, tempura, and ramen. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Rebecca began to find her rhythm. She incorporated elements of American cuisine into traditional Japanese dishes, creating unique fusions that soon became the talk of the town. Her black bean stew with a touch of umami and her seafood stew with dashi garnered praise from local food critics. 3 months after Rebecca's departure, Ethan finally managed to arrange a business trip to Tokyo. He arrived a day earlier than planned, intending to surprise Rebecca at the restaurant. When he entered the elegant establishment, Ethan was amazed to see Rebecca in action. She moved through the kitchen with grace and confidence, commanding her team with gentle but firm authority. His heart filled with pride and love. Rebecca was so focused on her work that she didn't notice Ethan approaching. When he finally cleared his throat to get her attention, she turned, her eyes widening in surprise and joy. "Ethan," she cried, throwing herself into his arms, completely ignoring Japanese formality. "What are you doing here?" Ethan hugged her tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair mixed with the exotic aromas of the kitchen. "Surprise," he whispered. "I couldn't wait any longer to see you." That night, after her shift, Ethan prepared a special meal for Rebecca in her small Tokyo apartment. He served carefully rolled sushi, crispy tempura, and steaming ramen. Rebecca tasted each dish with tears in her eyes. "Ethan, this is incredible. How did you learn to make all this?" Ethan smiled, taking her hand across the table. "I wanted to show you that, even separated, we're still growing together, that our love can overcome any distance." Moved, Rebecca stood up and pulled Ethan into a passionate kiss. In that moment, all the fears and doubts of the past months dissipated. They knew that no matter where they were in the world, their love and their shared passion for cooking would always keep them connected. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and shared experiences. Ethan accompanied Rebecca on her favorite tours of Tokyo, marveling at the city's unique blend of tradition and modernity. They explored fish markets at dawn, meditated in ancient temples, and got lost in the neon lights of Shibuya. On the eve of Ethan's departure, they sat on the balcony of Rebecca's apartment, gazing at Tokyo's illuminated skyline. "You know," Ethan began, intertwining his fingers with Rebecca's, "I think I finally understand why you needed to come here. This experience, it's transforming you into an even more incredible chef." Rebecca smiled, leaning against him. "And you? How is it leading the company in San Francisco?" Ethan reflected for a moment. "It's challenging but rewarding. I think I've finally found my place in the business world, and all thanks to you for giving me the courage to follow my own path." They sat in silence for a moment, contemplating how their lives had changed over the past few years. "We still have a few months ahead," Rebecca said softly, "but when you come back, Ethan completed, we'll be ready for the next chapter of our lives, together." As the sun rose over Tokyo, Ethan and Rebecca sealed that promise with a kiss. They knew the coming months wouldn't be easy, but they were more confident than ever in their love and their future together. As Ethan prepared to return to San Francisco and Rebecca focused on her final months in Tokyo, both carried with them a new certainty. No matter the physical distance between them, their hearts and souls were irrevocably intertwined, united by bonds of love, respect, and a shared passion that transcended continents and cultures. The final months of Rebecca's stay in Tokyo passed in the blink of an eye. Her reputation as an innovative chef grew rapidly, and her name began appearing in prestigious culinary magazines. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, Ethan continued to impress in the corporate world, bringing a fresh and creative approach to Collins Enterprises. Despite the distance, the couple found ways to keep their connection alive. They established a ritual of cooking together once a week through video calls. Ethan in San Francisco and Rebecca in Tokyo, each in their kitchen, preparing the same dish and sharing laughs and stories as they chopped, seasoned, and cooked. Finally, the day of Rebecca's return arrived. Ethan waited anxiously at San Francisco International Airport, a bouquet of tropical flowers in one hand and a small velvet box in his pocket. When Rebecca emerged from the arrival gate, their eyes met, and the world seemed to stop. They embraced, tightly, words seeming inadequate to express the joy of reunion. Ethan then pulled back slightly, his heart beating fast. "Rebecca," he began, his voice trembling slightly with emotion, "this year away from you was the most difficult and rewarding of my life. I realized that no matter where we are in the world, my heart will always be with you." He then knelt down, opening the small box to reveal a delicate ring with a solitaire diamond. "Rebecca Johnson, would you do me the honor of marrying me?" Tears of happiness sprang to Rebecca's eyes. "Yes," she exclaimed, pulling Ethan into a passionate kiss to the delight of onlookers at the airport. The following weeks were a whirlwind of planning and excitement. The couple decided that their wedding would be a celebration not only of their love, but also of their shared passions. They planned an intimate ceremony, followed by an elaborate banquet that would fuse American, Californian, and Japanese cuisines. On the wedding day, the Collins mansion in New York was transformed into a multicultural, gastronomic paradise. Ethan waited at the altar, nervous but radiant, as Rebecca walked down the aisle, stunning in a dress that blended traditional elements with modern touches. The ceremony was moving, with Ethan and Rebecca exchanging vows that spoke not only of love, but of partnership, growth, and mutual support. When they were declared husband and wife, the applause from the guests was deafening. The banquet that followed was nothing short of spectacular. Food stations offered delicacies from all corners of the world that had touched their lives. There was black bean stew next to paella, sushi near little pastries, and a wedding cake that was a culinary work of art, representing the different phases of their journey together. During the toast, Richard Collins, Ethan's father, surprised everyone with an emotional speech. "When Ethan told me he wanted to follow his heart and go to San Francisco with Rebecca, I confess I had my doubts," he began. "But seeing you two today, I realize I was wrong. You haven't just grown individually, but you've strengthened as a couple. I'm proud of you both and can't wait to see what the future holds." As the night progressed, Ethan and Rebecca found themselves alone for a moment in the mansion's kitchen, where it had all begun. "So, Mrs. Collins," Ethan smiled, pulling Rebecca close, "what's the next step in our culinary adventure?" Rebecca smiled mysteriously. "Well, Mr. Collins, how about we start our own restaurant? A place that's truly ours, where we can combine our passions and experiences?" Ethan's eyes shone with excitement. "That sounds perfect. But where?" "How about right here in New York?" Rebecca suggested. "We can bring a bit of the world to your hometown." Ethan nodded enthusiastically. "I'd love that, and I have the perfect name and Fusion." Rebecca laughed, delighted with the idea. "It's perfect, just like us." They sealed the deal with a kiss, knowing they were about to embark on yet another exciting journey together. The dream of opening their own restaurant was just the beginning of a new phase in their lives, one that promised to be as flavorful and rewarding as everything they had experienced so far. As they danced under the stars, surrounded by friends and family, Ethan and Rebecca knew that no matter what challenges the future might bring, they would face them together, with love, determination, and of course plenty of good food. The first months after the wedding were a whirlwind of activity for Ethan and Rebecca. Settled back in New York, the couple dove headfirst into preparations to open Fusion, their dream restaurant. Finding the perfect location was the first challenge. After weeks of searching, they finally discovered an old building in the charming Soho neighborhood. The space needed extensive renovations, but it had the potential to become exactly what they had imagined. Renovation work began. Immediately, Ethan supervised the structural and financial aspects, while Rebecca focused on the kitchen design and menu concept. Their different approaches sometimes caused friction. "Ethan, we can't skimp on the quality of kitchen equipment," Rebecca insisted during a heated discussion. "I know, love, but we also need to be realistic about the budget," Ethan argued, running his hand through his hair in frustration. These discussions usually ended with compromises on both sides, strengthening their partnership, but also testing their patience. Meanwhile, the news that the Collins heir and renowned chef Rebecca Johnson were opening a restaurant together spread quickly. The local media was in an uproar, and the pressure for success was palpable. One afternoon, while testing recipes in their apartment kitchen, Rebecca noticed Ethan looking thoughtfully out the window. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Placing a hand on his shoulder, Ethan sighed. "What if we fail, Becca? What if the restaurant doesn't work out?" Rebecca turned him to face her. "Then we'll fail together and try again. Remember what we promised? In good times and bad." Ethan smiled, pulling her into a hug. "What would I do without you? You'd probably still be eating that horrible omelette of yours," she teased, making him laugh. As the opening date approached, stress increased. There were delays in renovation, problems with suppliers, and endless discussions about the menu. But there were also moments of pure joy and fulfillment, like when they finally decided on the opening menu, or when they saw the Fusion sign being installed on the building's facade. On the eve of the grand opening, Ethan and Rebecca were alone, in the restaurant after a long day of final preparations. They walked hand in hand through the space, admiring how their dreams had materialized. The decor blended American, Californian, and Japanese elements harmoniously. The open kitchen allowed customers to see the magic happening. Every detail, from the cutlery to the lighting, had been carefully chosen to create the perfect atmosphere. "It's more beautiful than I imagined," Rebecca whispered, moved. Ethan hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "It's perfect, just like you." That night, they slept little, anxious and nervous about what the next day would bring. The morning of the opening arrived with a frenzy of activity. The carefully selected and trained team arrived early, and soon the kitchen was alive with the sound of knives cutting, pots bubbling, and orders being given. Ethan, dressed in an elegant suit, took care of the final details in the dining room, while Rebecca, in her chef's uniform, commanded the kitchen with military precision. By 7 p.m. sharp, the doors of Fusion opened to the public for the first time. The restaurant was packed, with a mix of food critics, local celebrities, and customers eager to try New York's newest culinary sensation. The 7-course tasting menu took diners on a journey through Ethan and Rebecca's culinary experiences. Each dish told a story. There was a sophisticated reinterpretation of the black bean stew that Rebecca used to make at the Collins mansion, a ceviche that recalled their adventures in San Francisco, and a sushi with American touches that paid homage to Rebecca's time in Tokyo. The evening went smoothly, and the murmurs of approval from customers were music to the couple's ears. When the last customer left around 2 a.m., Ethan and Rebecca could finally breathe. Exhausted but exultant, they met in the now silent kitchen. Without saying a word, they hugged tightly, letting the emotions of the day flow. "We did it, love," Ethan murmured against Rebecca's hair. "Yes, we did," she replied, lifting her face to kiss him. In the days that followed, reviews began to come in, and they were overwhelmingly positive. Fusion was praised for its innovative approach, mixing techniques and flavors harmoniously and surprisingly. 1 month after the opening, Ethan and Rebecca finally had a moment to reflect on their journey. Sitting on the balcony of their apartment, with glasses of wine in hand, they observed New York's skyline. "If someone had told me a few years ago that I would be here, married to the most incredible woman in the world and owner of a successful restaurant, I would have laughed," Ethan commented. Rebecca smiled, snuggling against him. "And if they had told me that the spoiled heir I met in the mansion kitchen would become the amazing man you are today, I wouldn't have believed it either." They toasted to their success, their love, and the adventures yet to come. Fusion was more than a restaurant. It was the symbol of their journey together, proof that with love, dedication, and a little culinary creativity, any dream is possible. As night fell over New York, Ethan and Rebecca knew this was just the beginning. The future was full of possibilities, new flavors to explore and challenges to overcome. But now more than ever, they were ready to face it all together, side by side in the kitchen of life. The success of Fusion exceeded all of Ethan and Rebecca's expectations. In just 6 months, the restaurant became one of New York's most popular gastronomic spots, with reservations made months in advance. Specialized critics spared no praise, and even international magazines began to take note of the culinary phenomenon happening in the heart of Manhattan. However, with success came new challenges. Ethan and Rebecca found themselves working more than ever, often spending 16 hours a day at the restaurant. Although they loved what they did, fatigue began to take its toll. One night after closing, Rebecca found Ethan asleep over paperwork in his office at the restaurant. She woke him gently, noticing the deep circles under his eyes. "Ethan, darling, we need to talk," she said, sitting beside him. Ethan rubbed his eyes, trying to wake up. "What is it, love?" "We're working ourselves to death. This isn't what we imagined when we opened Fusion, was it?" Ethan sighed, realizing she was right. "No, it wasn't. But what can we do? The restaurant needs us." Rebecca took his hands in hers. "What if we hired more people, delegated more? We need to find a balance, Ethan. I don't want our marriage to suffer because of the restaurant." Rebecca's words hit Ethan like lightning. He realized they had been so focused on Fusion's success that they were neglecting their relationship. "You're absolutely right," he agreed, pulling her into a hug. "Let's make changes, starting with taking a few days off. How about a little trip, just the two of us?" Rebecca's face lit up with a smile. That would be wonderful. In the following weeks, they implemented several changes at Fusion. They hired an experienced manager to handle daily operations, expanded the kitchen staff, and established more reasonable hours for themselves. It was a difficult adjustment at first, but soon they began to see the benefits. With more free time, Ethan and Rebecca rediscovered the pleasure of cooking together at home, experimenting with new recipes without the pressure of a packed restaurant. It was during one of these relaxed nights in the kitchen that Rebecca made an announcement that would change their lives forever. "Ethan," she began, a nervous smile playing on her lips, "I have something to tell you." Ethan stopped chopping vegetables, noticing the serious tone in her voice. "What is it, love? Is everything okay?" Rebecca took his hand and placed it on her belly. "I'm pregnant." The world seemed to stop for a moment. Ethan stood speechless, processing the news. Then a huge smile spread across his face. "Pregnant? We're having a baby?" he asked, his voice overflowing with emotion. Rebecca nodded, tears of happiness shining in her eyes. Ethan hugged her tightly, laughing and crying at the same time. "This is amazing, Becca. We're going to be parents," he exclaimed, spinning her around the kitchen. The news of the pregnancy brought a new wave of changes to their lives. The couple spent the following months preparing not only for the baby's arrival, but also for how they would balance parenthood with running the restaurant. They decided to transform part of the office at Fusion into a small nursery, allowing Rebecca to be near the baby even during work. Ethan, meanwhile, immersed himself in books about fatherhood, determined to be the best father possible. As Rebecca's belly grew, her menu at Fusion evolved. She incorporated dishes inspired by her hormonal changes and pregnancy cravings, creating unusual combinations that surprisingly became hits among customers. The day of the birth came on a busy Saturday night at Fusion. Rebecca was in the kitchen when her water broke, causing a frenzy among the staff. Ethan, who was in the dining room, nearly fainted when he received the news. Hours later, at the TU hospital, Ethan held a small bundle in his hands, his daughter Emily. Looking at Rebecca, exhausted but radiant in the hospital bed, he felt his heart overflow with love. "She's perfect," Ethan whispered, sitting beside Rebecca. "Just like you." Rebecca smiled, caressing Emily's little face. "Our little masterpiece," she joked. "I think this is the best thing we've ever created together." Ethan laughed softly. "Without a doubt, although that truffle sauce we invented last month comes close," he joked, making Rebecca laugh. In the months that followed, Ethan and Rebecca navigated the challenges of new parenthood with the same enthusiasm and determination they applied in the kitchen. Sleepless nights were compensated by moments of pure joy, seeing Emily's first smile, hearing her first laugh, witnessing her first steps. Fusion continued to thrive, now with a special touch of family love in every dish. Ethan and Rebecca found a new balance, learning to be parents, business partners, and lovers, all at the same time. One night as they put Emily to bed, Ethan looked at Rebecca and realized how much their lives had changed since that first meeting in the Collins mansion kitchen. "You know," he said softly, "I never imagined that stubborn chef who refused to make me breakfast outside of hours would end up giving me everything I ever wanted in life." Rebecca smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "And I never thought that spoiled heir would become the incredible man you are today." As they watched their daughter sleeping peacefully, Ethan and Rebecca knew their journey was far from over. There were still many dishes to create, many adventures to experience. But now, with Emily in their lives, they had a new and precious ingredient to add to their recipe for happiness. The future was bright and full of possibilities, and they could hardly wait to see what the next chapter of their lives held. Together, as a family, they were ready to face any challenge life might present them, always with love, creativity, and, of course, a good dose of seasoning. 5 years passed since Emily's birth, and Ethan and Rebecca's life had transformed in ways they never could have imagined. Fusion was no longer just a restaurant, but a culinary institution in New York, with waiting lists extending for months. On a sunny Sunday morning, the Collins-Johnson family was gathered in their apartment kitchen. Emily, now an energetic 5-year-old girl, stood on a stool helping Rebecca prepare pancakes. "Mummy, can I add chocolate chips?" Emily asked, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Rebecca laughed, exchanging a knowing look with Ethan, who was watching the scene with a smile while preparing coffee. "Of course, sweetheart, but just a little, okay?" Ethan approached, planting a kiss on Emily's forehead and another on Rebecca's lips. "My favorite chefs," he teased. The moment was interrupted by the ring of Ethan's phone. He answered, his face growing serious as he listened. When he hung up, Rebecca looked at him questioningly. "It was Dad," Ethan explained. "He wants to see us this afternoon. Said he has something important to discuss." Hours later, at the Collins mansion, Richard welcomed the family with a mixture of seriousness and affection. After initial greetings and Emily being taken to play in the garden with the nanny, Richard got straight to the point. "Ethan, Rebecca," he began, "I'm thinking of retiring." The announcement caught the couple by surprise. Richard continued, "I want you to take over the presidency of Collins Enterprises, Ethan. I know it's not what you planned, but I believe you're ready." Ethan was silent for a moment, processing the information. Rebecca squeezed his hand in support. "Dad, I don't know what to say," Ethan finally responded. "It's an honor, but Fusion—" Richard raised his hand, interrupting him. "I know. Son, that's why I want you to know there's no rush. Take the time you need to decide. And Rebecca," he turned to his daughter-in-law, "I want you to know that your role in this is as important as Ethan's. You're a team, and any decision should be made together." On the way back home, Ethan was thoughtful. Rebecca waited patiently until he was ready to speak. "What do you think, Becca?" he finally asked. Rebecca considered for a moment. "I think it's an incredible opportunity, Ethan, but I also understand your hesitation. Fusion is our baby." "Just like Emily," Ethan added, with a smile. "Exactly. Maybe we can find a way to do both." The following weeks were ones of intense reflection and discussion for the couple. They weighed the pros and cons, considered various options, and finally reached a decision. One night, they gathered the Fusion staff after closing. Ethan and Rebecca climbed onto the small improvised stage they had set up. "First, we want to thank all of you," Ethan began. "Fusion's success is as much yours as it is ours." Rebecca continued, "We have an important announcement to make. Ethan has been invited to take over the presidency of Collins Enterprises." A murmur of surprise ran through the staff. "But," Ethan quickly added, "that doesn't mean we'll be abandoning Fusion. In fact, we have a plan." They then revealed their vision, transforming Fusion into a culinary school during the day while maintaining the restaurant at night. Rebecca would assume the role of director of the school, while Ethan would divide his time between Collins Enterprises and Fusion. "We want to share what we've learned," Rebecca explained. "Give others the opportunity to discover their passion for cooking, just as we did." The staff received the news with enthusiasm. In the months that followed, Fusion underwent a transformation. A wing was added to accommodate classes, and renowned chefs from around the world were invited to give lectures and workshops. A year later, on the day of the inauguration of the Fusion Culinary School, Ethan and Rebecca stood before a crowd of eager students, journalists, and VIP guests. "Welcome to the Fusion Culinary School," Ethan began. "This place is more than just a school or a restaurant. It's a symbol of transformation, of love, and of passion." Rebecca continued, "Here we don't just teach culinary techniques, we teach the importance of following your dreams, of never stopping learning and growing." As they spoke, their eyes met, full of love and gratitude. They thought about their journey, from that first meeting in the Collins Mansion kitchen to this moment. Every challenge, every victory, every dish created had led them to this point. Emily, now 6 years old, ran to the stage and hugged her parents' legs. Ethan picked her up, and Rebecca put her arm around his waist. "And remember," Rebecca concluded, looking at the audience, "life, like cooking, is an art in constant evolution. Never stop experimenting, challenging yourselves, and above all, loving what you do." With a grand gesture, Ethan and Rebecca cut the ribbon, officially declaring the Fusion Culinary School open. Applause echoed through the hall, marking the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. As the celebration continued around them, Ethan pulled Rebecca in for a passionate kiss. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" she asked, smiling. "For everything. For teaching me to cook, for helping me grow, for our family, for this incredible life we've built together." Rebecca kissed him back, her eyes shining with emotion. "No, my love. Thank you for giving me the courage to follow my dreams." And so, surrounded by friends, family, and the aroma of new beginnings, Ethan and Rebecca knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, with love, passion, and, of course, plenty of good food. Dear listeners, we hope that Ethan and Rebecca's journey has warmed your hearts as much as a well-prepared dish warms the soul. To continue exploring equally captivating stories, we've prepared a special playlist with tales that blend love, overcoming challenges, and, of course, lots of gastronomy. You can find it by clicking on the link to the left. If this story has whetted your appetite for more, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Every day we bring new narratives that explore the complexities of life, love, and human relationships. And what did you think of Ethan and Rebecca's ending? Do you believe that love can truly transform people? Share your opinions in the comments. We can't wait to read your reflections and, who knows, find inspiration for future stories. Until next time, and remember, just like in the kitchen, life is more flavorful when shared with those we love.